Hey there, Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music. Welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about a company called LALAL.AI. They reached out to me not long ago asking if I'd be interested in doing a video on their source separation tech, a review. I was intrigued. I did some research and found out, though, that pretty much anyone with a YouTube channel about music has already talked about this company, and so I thought, I want to make this different, I want to make it interesting. Why not have a video shootout between LALAL.AI and another prominent source separation tech company in the cloud? And so they were cool with that. So we're going to see a couple different tests in this video. One, to see the source separation quality from LALAL.AI and RIPX, a company who I think many would consider to be also at the top for source separation. But I also noticed that LALAL.AI has a voice cleaner now that's a part of their service. So I'm also going to be testing it against another cloud voice cleaner, Adobe Podcast. And you might have seen my video about them in the very last video that I made. So just so you know, LALAL.AI is supporting this video. They're only going to review it for technical inaccuracies, which I hope there are none. All of my thoughts and opinions are my own. So, a little bit about how this service works. Goes something like this. You go to their website, LALAL.AI, and then you go over here and you can choose between one of two products, either a stem splitter or a voice cleaner. Let's go for the stem splitter, which is where I actually started on the page. And you can now just drag in whatever the file is that you're working on and get to work. So I should mention that there's a couple of cool little things here. You can learn about a new algorithm that they have, which says that, it's twice as fast with the stem splitting, which is really great because when you use the service, you're basically paying for processing time, which you see over here. So 291.33, about 300 minutes of processing time is what I have. So if this new algorithm is twice as fast, that's even better for you if you're a paying customer. You also see that you have a number of algorithms that will separate things. So you have, just vocals and instruments, drums, bass, and also some strings, wind, and synthesizer here, which are new stems you can extract, which is pretty cool. So that's something that you should know. So what I'm going to do is go to my Finder and bring in this track over here and just drag it on and have it upload. So now we see a little dialog, success, the task is completed, your previews are ready. And we can then go here and choose vocal and instrument, drums, bass, voice and noise, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, piano, and so on and so forth. And you can preview over here the voice. Well, something inside you is breaking apart. And also the noise, which I guess is everything except for the voice. And you might be thinking, well, this sounds pretty good. And it does, but that's because the voice hasn't come in yet. It's going to come in over here. So I'll just skip ahead a little bit. But you can also go over here and go to drums, for example. And now the preview is going to start generating the drums against, I assume, everything else. Now, as this is queuing up, it's important for you guys to know that you can't actually extract stems simultaneously and have them all download. You have to do one at a time, which is different from RIPX, where you can just kind of pick the things that you want and then press process, and it'll process them and then put them into a folder on your desktop. LALAL.AI says they're working on this simultaneous pick and download option. So for now, though, it's just one at a time. So here's the drums. And everything that isn't drums. And just because I see electric guitar here, we do have a pretty prominent electric guitar at the very beginning. Let's click that and get a preview. It's actually pretty impressive. Here's everything that isn't electric guitar. while you don't have the option to simultaneously download everything that you need, it is kind of nice that you can preview everything in this window without actually committing the processing yet to decide if it's something that you actually want to go with. So let's say that this is something that we wanted to go with. We want to download this. We're happy with the previews. We go over here to this process entire file, and it'll tell you right away how much of your time that you're paying for is going to be deducted over here. So that's kind of nice. We'll go process entire file. Now, one of the nice things about this is, as it says down here, after the splitting process is finished, the download links to both stems will be sent to your email, which in this case is vodkastpodcaster@gmail.com. That's nice because I can kind of go away and come back and get a ping and download them right from my email and just go do something else. In fact, I've found that it's a little bit faster, the ping that you get to your email, as opposed to waiting from this site. It's just something that I've noticed that tends to be a little different. So kind of nice. You can just do something else, come back, download your stems, and keep moving. So now that we made it to the other side of the processing, we can download the electric guitar full or download without electric guitar. And if you go to my email here, you'll see that we should have an email telling us that the processing is finished. There it is. Harmony Lift right there. And we can go download the electric guitar track from here, or everything without the electric guitar track. And there, it's done. So now what I want to do is head into the digital audio workstation Logic, where I happen to have the original track and then a selection of stems exported from LALAL.AI and RIPX. Now, just so you know, if you're in RIPX and you bring the track in, just so you can see the export process, I can go new over here, and then I can drag in the same track, and it'll tell me, voice, bass, everything else, drums, percussion, and you can save stems only and hit rip, and then it will output those individual files simultaneously. So I have the original song here. And I have LALAL.AI down here, and I have RIPX stems down here. You'll notice that I have the vocals, I have the instrumental, drums, and bass from LALAL.AI. And from RIPX, I have vocals, bass, drums, and then everything else from RIPX down there. So what I want to do is just first start by soloing the vocals between LALAL.AI and RIPX. So here's the soloed vocals from LALAL.AI.
Well, something inside you is breaking apart, and I won't let you fall to the dark.
And here's RIPX.
Well, something inside you is breaking apart, and I won't let you fall to the dark.
Let's go to a more dense part of the arrangement where there's a lot of instrumentation and we have some vocals as well. So starting with this section from LALAL.AI, and then we'll hop over to RIPX.
Can't see you, it's hard, I know, but you're breaking all your own rules. Can't see you, it's hard, I know, but you're breaking all your own rules. You try, but you're making all the wrong. It's hard, I know, but you're breaking all your own rules. You try, but you're making all the wrong.
That is a vocal comparison between LALAL.AI and RIPX. To my ears, they sound very, very similar. However, I do notice that there's a touch more clarity happening in LALAL.AI. They sound a bit more honky and low mid-rangey in the RIPX version, but they're both pretty, well separated, I'll say. Let's go over here just to really listen for the things that I mentioned now that I've mentioned them, and go between these two sections here, starting with LALAL.AI.
The life of the angel, sharing the shine. The life of the angel, sharing the shine, holding a mirror, killing the time, the waste of a warm tear, tasting the brine, and all of the good thought gone from the mind.
So again, it's pretty close. I know the song very well, and I found that a couple times in the RIPX version, I was hearing other instruments bleeding in, especially near the end there. And it sounded, again, a bit more crisp in LALAL.AI, but still very, very, very close. Very clean separation between both. Why don't we do some drums now? All right, drums, starting with LALAL.AI. I'm not sure if you could hear it, but I found that we had a little bit more artifacting happening on the LALAL.AI drums. The ones from RIPX were a bit tighter, a bit crisper, and didn't have that flangey envelope opening sound that I had on LALAL.AI. Still both very impressive, however. Let's try the bass from both tracks, starting with the bass from LALAL.AI. Okay, to my ears, two very different bass profiles, and one has a bit more bleed than the other, but not by much. I would say that the LALAL.AI bass is softer. It's a bit clearer, whereas we have a bit more buzz coming off the RIPX version. Perhaps a bit more buzz than I'd like, but still pretty equal, I think, separation between the two products. So for me, I think the biggest difference is the drums from LALAL.AI over RIPX. The vocals, I have to say, it's very tough for me to say, oh, there's a huge difference between these two companies. I think they're very, very close and very, very impressive in terms of what they can do with that clean separation. I think the only edge that the vocal processing from LALAL.AI has is perhaps it's the EQ that is added maybe in some part of the algorithm. Maybe there is no EQ, but it does sound a touch just cleaner and crisper. I want to now pivot over to the voice cleaner, which is new and interesting from LALAL.AI. And you can find it yourself. If you go to the website, you go to products, you'll see voice cleaner right down there. So as it says, it's not just a voice cleaner. It'll clean up plosives, mic rumble, and other unwanted noise, and remove background music too, which is pretty impressive. I decided to record something myself and put it through both the Adobe Podcast and LALAL.AI cleaner. Now you'll notice here that just like in the stem splitter, you have different processing levels. Now for the stem splitter, I used aggressive for all of the stem splitting just because I wanted to really put the technology to the test. However, for the voice cleaner, I used normal and aggressive modes because I was trying to see if I got a better result from one over the other or something cleaner. Anyway, the process is exactly the same. You just drag something in and then it'll give you a preview and then you can download it. Let's head into Logic. Again, I'm going to collapse these track stacks. I'm going to open this stack that I have with dialogue cleaning. Okay, so now we're good to go. Let me just bring this open here and I'm going to have you listen to the original, which is me in my kitchen. Well, you'll hear it. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. And we are going to have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. I'm not moving, but there's stuff that's moving in the background and doors that are closing and opening. And I think we'll just leave it there and see how this sounds. So let's now listen to LALAL.AI's attempt to clean that up with an aggressive algorithm and then a normal algorithm. So here is the aggressive LALAL.AI voice cleaner. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. And we are going to have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. Let's bounce between the two. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. And we are going to have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. I'm not moving, but there's stuff that's moving in the background. So as you can hear, there appears to be a pretty strong gating effect happening. When I open my mouth and start saying things, the gate, moves and lets everything in. We still get a little bit of removal from the background, but that pumping and opening and closing from that gate is pretty pronounced, which is why I wanted to see if a normal algorithm would give me a different state of affairs, a different result. So that's what I have down here. And what I'll do is I'll bounce between the original and then the normal, starting with the cleaned up normal here. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. Now let's hop between both, starting with the original. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. And we are going to have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. Let's go between the aggressive and normal, just so you can hear the difference between the two. And then we'll finish with Adobe's enhanced version. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or... Okay, so I think you get the picture. We have a less aggressive gate, but we still have noise coming in and, being a part of the things that I'm saying. Let's now go between the original and Adobe's enhanced version, starting with the Adobe one. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing. And my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that. And we are Gonna have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. I'm not moving, but there's stuff that's moving in the background and doors that are closing and opening. And I think we'll just leave it there and see how this sounds. So I think it's pretty clear that with the Adobe Enhanced version, we have a much cleaner start to finish vocal sound. We also have no gating artifacts, no pumping, no sucking like that. We can hear everything pretty clearly in the voice. I think there's a bit of an unfair advantage because what Adobe is doing is not just removing the noise, but it's filling in and resynthesizing any artifacting or any missing frequency information as a result of its really intense cleaning process. So it's going in, cleaning, and then enhancing what's there to make it sound as though I wasn't far away or on a phone. I was on a nice microphone. So it's still just not quite apples to apples, but I wanted to try the two. Just for fun, let's go between the Adobe Denoise Enhanced and let's go between the Aggressive from LALAL.AI, starting with Adobe. Okay, so I am sat next to my dishwasher, which is doing its thing, and my wife is also just opening and closing some drawers and things in the kitchen. You can imagine this is like an interview, a phone-in interview or something like that, and we are going to have to clean this up before it goes to broadcast. I'm not moving, but there's stuff that's moving in the background. The other thing that comes across to me is in its attempt to enhance what I've done, I sound like I have a bit of a cold on the Adobe one, which is not a big deal, but like it is something that is obvious to me sonically. I sound kind of pinched and nasally, but it's obviously significantly cleaner, and we don't have that gating. The other thing I want to say, just because I'm being really nitpicky and I really love to test this stuff, is the background noise is still kind of constant throughout the Adobe Enhanced one. In fact, we start very early on with, I think, a bit of a pronounced noise floor, which you can see as I bring up the waveform view here, right there. And we don't really have that with the super aggressive one from LALAL.AI. Okay, so when the gate changes, then we can hear the room come in, but it's interesting that Adobe Enhanced left it in there. So that will conclude the testing part. I now just want to give my thoughts on these two services. Well, three services, because we have RIPX, LALA, and Adobe. I think as far as the stem splitting goes, it's true that as a negative, you can't simultaneously download stuff, but I think they've made up for it with a pretty good preview and new algorithm section where you can do, synthesizers and strings and stuff, which I think is going to be really beneficial for people that want to do immersive mixing. So this is the idea of taking a stereo mix and placing it, around a 3D soundstage for like Apple immersive format or whatever. And the reason this is helpful is because right now, a lot of what most of the guys can do is bass, drums, vocals, and everything else. But with the LALAL.AI, you can get a couple more little stems in there to place around the stereo field. And this is important because in immersive mixing, you often don't have the multitracks to go back to. You just have a stereo file from like Aerosmith 40 years ago that you have to somehow extract and then move around in the stereo field. So that's or immersive field or whatever you want to call it. So that's, I think, an interesting advantage that LALAL.AI has for people doing a lot of that work, a lot of that catalog work. As far as the quality differences between the stem source separation between the two products, I think it's really going to come down to small little details because as you notice, the vocals from LALAL.AI and RIPX both sounded very separated and pretty clear. I think small advantage to LALAL.AI on the crisp kind of clarity, sounded kind of more defined on the vocals, but the drums I thought sounded a little bit better and tighter on RIPX. So it's really just down to small little things that I think reasonable people can disagree on. Where I think competitors have an advantage is definitely in the voice cleaning. That makes sense though, because if you notice on the website, this voice cleaner, it's a little bit newer, at least that's what I've surmised from reading the blogs and stuff. And one of the nice things about operating a website like this is you don't have to give people a plugin to download when there's a new update. You just update the back end of your service, the algorithms or whatever. So I can imagine this getting a little bit better in time as they catch up and listen, and people like me do tests to, other cloud voice cleaners. So I think obviously stem splitting, it's pretty close. It's pretty good. And the experience of using the website is great too. For voice cleaning, I think I'd probably want to continue using plugins, or even the Adobe Enhancer if I had no time, I just want to drag and drop. But it is cool to see the technology advancing to the point where we don't need plugins. We could be on a Windows or Mac machine, any browser, just drag our files in and keep moving. So if you want to learn more about LALAL.AI, just go to the website, this one here, this LALAL.AI, and you can take a look at what's going on here and decide for yourself with some tests. I think that'll do it for me, though. This has been Manchester Music. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe. I got a Patreon. You know the whole thing. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.